I will 100% eat that much ice cream next time. So they recommend taking off the epidural, and I agree. They take it off, and the whole goal was that the medicine would wear off enough that we were hoping that I would feel the pressure first before the pain kicked in, so I would be able to push the baby out, and then we wouldn't have to worry about like the contraction pain as much again. And that's not what happened. So we took the epidural off, and the contraction pain came back probably within about 12 minutes, and I will be that specific because I was watching the clock, and I do think it was about 12 or 13 minutes before the contractions were back. I think at that point I was just so fatigued already that it was just too much. I couldn't do it. So they were trying to get me to go through it anyway. I had asked to see if I could push on hands and knees because in all the research I had done, that was supposed to be one of the best positions to deliver in, is on hands and knees. Technically being on your back is like one of the worst positions. I didn't get to do hands and knees, but they did help me because of the epidural. They did help me flip back and forth. And when I tell you there is nothing harder in the world than just moving to your side to your back and then from your back to your side when you are in that much pain, I was never going to be able to do anything again. I was going to live in that labor bed, but I didn't, obviously. So yeah, so the nurse is super helpful. I'm in active labor. She's walking me through pushing. We're doing purple pushing or like closed glottis pushing, something like that, where you essentially like hold your breath and you use all of your pressure to essentially like try and get a good push in. And so she would help me count down to 10 and then I would get a break, and then she was like, all right, do you think you can do like a little more? And my nurses were fantastic. She would help me count down and then I would get a break and she's like, can you do it again? And I said yes. And so we would do another like 8 seconds. And so I went into this very determined. Obviously, I'm going to push my child out. I had made it in my birth plan that I was not going to do a vacuum and I was not going to do forceps. The only other option for me, if it needed to come to it, would be an emergency C-section. And obviously, I was going to try and avoid that as much as possible because I did not want major abdominal surgery. We're doing that and we're in the middle of that, and nobody had woken up Ed. So when I got the epidural and everybody relaxed, he finally fell asleep. So he had worked a 12-hour shift the night before, and then he got his standard like 4 or 5 hours of sleep for the day, and then he was up until like midnight with me. Finally fell asleep on the couch, poor kid. He wakes up and the nurse is like, all right, let's get it going. And he's like, okay, yeah. And so he's a champ. He stands next to me. He lets me hold his hand. He tries to help hold a leg. He is helping me count through. He's like breathing with me. He's a great support person. He did fantastic. We push for 3.5 hours. We pushed for 3.5 hours, and the nurse is like, you're so close, you're so close. You're gonna get your baby in just a couple more minutes, mama, you got this. And I was like, I feel like you're lying to me, like I've just been here forever and she's not making any progress. But it did get to the point, and it meant something, that they brought the doctor back in. My sense of time at this point is very skewed. I don't actually know what was happening when. I just know that I was in this moment. Labor is primal. Primal. So I was in this moment. At some point, I do remember saying that I wanted the epidural back because I couldn't concentrate enough to feel like I was being successful in pushing. The nurse asked the doctor, and the doctor said no, because he said no. So Ed went and he pulled the nurse to the side. He was like, I would really, really like it if you could ask the doctor again for the epidural, for her to get that back because she needs it. And if I had any recommendations up to this point, it is do your research and your education. Going into this knowing what was going to happen, obviously I didn't know physically like how I would handle it, but I had the tools. Like I had the education. So do your research and get your support person, if you have one, in on it too, because him being able to advocate for me while I was in nothing but like primal birthing mode was so helpful. Otherwise, I don't know how it would have gone. I don't know if I would have ever gotten the epidural back because I didn't know that he pulled the nurse off to the side and that the nurse had to re-request it. So it was re-requested. The nurses talked the doctor into it. I got the epidural back, and that's when progress was actually made. They did what was called like a low dose epidural. It took the pain off just enough that I could concentrate on pushing. It didn't mean that it went any faster though. It was still 3.5 hours. There was some concern a little bit because it was starting to take so long that her head was swelling a little bit. So they were concerned about her head swelling, and they were concerned about her heart rate would drop a little bit. There was a nurse changeover. So the nurse that I had had the whole time, she left at 7. And I, for 16 minutes, had a new nurse. Doctor is talking me through it. He's trying to get me to push. She's making some progress, and then she kind of retracts a little bit, and then she'd make some progress and she would retract a little bit. And so at this point it's about 7 o'clock, and it's also time for his shift change, so he wanted to go home. And the doctor asks me if I wanted to do the vacuum. And I remember enough that I looked up at him from between my legs, and I was like, no, that's not a choice. And he was like, it would make it faster for you. I said, no, I will push this baby out. And I did. And so I think he looked away just for a second. I think he got distracted by something, I don't remember. But I remember all of a sudden finding a little piece of like point in between my hip where I could feel something, centered myself on that spot, and I pushed the hardest that I had in 3.5 hours, and out came a baby. Like, there she was. And it was amazing, and it was miraculous, and all of a sudden there was this new human in our life, and I was so excited to meet her. And so like the baby came out, and they said congratulations, and Ed got to cut the umbilical cord, and they placed her on my chest, and it was like the best moment. Have her there. They called all the baby doctors in, and so she doesn't get taken out of the room. She's off to the side so that they can weigh her and everything. And it was really funny because so all of the baby nurses are there, and they start immediately making bets at how much she weighs because she was so big. And they would look back at me and they're like, she was in you? I said, yeah, because they looked at me and then they looked at her and they saw that she was 8.9 and a half pounds. My daughter was large. And Ed was like, okay, next time we are not eating that much ice cream. I will 100% eat that much ice cream next time. All of these people are flooding into the room. There's like, I don't know, it felt like 20 people in the room. My legs are in the stirrups because I did end up with stitches. I remember kind of like trying to look up at him. My abdominal core was so fatigued. I honestly, like, I couldn't lift myself. Ed kind of like takes a peek and he sort of just looks at me and goes, if I remember, I had like 2 or 3 spots that needed stitches, and the tears were 1 to maybe 2, like on the scale. Honestly, you're so busy healing everything. What's one more thing to heal? So they do the stitches, they weigh my baby, they bring her back, and yeah. And then that was the start of a whole new chapter for us. So on October 21st at 7:16 in the morning, Saoirse was born. And she will forever now share a birthday with my dad, who was also born on October 21st. And that's our birth story.